Welcome to This Explainer. Business email compromise alone has cost global organizations tens of billions of dollars over just the past few years. And, man, with generative AI in the mix now, those attacks are only getting more sophisticated and way harder to spot. So today, we're comparing two absolute powerhouse email security platforms that are custom built to stop those exact threats in 2026, Proofpoint and Sublime Security. If you're a CIO, a CISO, a security architect, or really any enterprise decision maker, this breakdown is absolutely for you. We're skipping the basic feature lists to give you the real, actionable insights you actually need. All right, let's dive right in. So, the big question on everyone's mind right now, which platform truly dominates the enterprise landscape this year? Proofpoint or Sublime Security? Well, the reality is the email security market is shifting incredibly fast. And making the right choice, it's not just about picking the tool with the most bells and whistles anymore. It's about organizational alignment. To figure out the answer, we're going to dissect their underlying architectures, look at exactly how they leverage AI, dig into their deployment complexities, and, of course, talk about their pricing models. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll kick things off with the core architectural divide, then move right into threat detection and AI. After that, we'll tackle deployment and daily operations, followed by automation and CI/CD workflows. Finally, we'll break down pricing and resilience before handing down the final verdict. Let's get to it. Section 1, the core architectural divide. We're looking at two completely different philosophies here. Before we even think about looking at specific features, we really have to understand a foundational difference between these two platforms. They're built on completely opposite philosophies. Proofpoint is your traditional, heavyweight, enterprise-grade secure email gateway. It sits in line. That means every single email must pass through it before it ever reaches your users' inboxes. It's kind of like a massive, heavily guarded checkpoint at the border of your network. Sublime Security, on the flip side, is a modern, cloud-native platform. It completely bypasses that gateway model, integrating directly into Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace using APIs. This is a massive paradigm shift, honestly. Instead of standing outside the castle walls, Sublime is operating inside the environment, acting a lot more like an internal security camera network. And this single architectural difference, it literally changes everything about how you deploy, operate, and scale your security. Moving on to Section 2, Threat Detection and AI. This is really a battle of massive telemetry versus ultimate flexibility. Let's take a look at the brains of the operation. Proofpoint brings massive scale. It relies on what is easily one of the largest commercial threat intelligence datasets in the world. It's pulling in behavioral AI, reputational analysis, and years of historical telemetry to give you this highly automated enterprise-hardened protection. It practically requires zero operational tuning to catch the big, obvious stuff. Now, Sublime, completely different approach. It's very SOC-centric. Its absolute core strength is detection engineering. You can actually write your own custom detections using YAML rules, AI-assisted logic, and LLM-enhanced analysis. For the business leaders tuning in, think of YAML and Sigma rules as basically treating your threat detection like software code. It lets your security team write and customize extremely specific rules right on the fly. It offers unbelievable flexibility if, of course, you've got the skilled personnel to wield it. So the crucial point for us is how this actually translates to real-world protection. Because of its massive telemetry, Proofpoint is just incredibly strong against large-scale commodity phishing campaigns, widespread malware, and credential theft. It knows what the bad guys are doing globally because, it sees so much of the world's traffic. Sublime, with its custom engineering, really excels at catching the highly evasive, sneaky stuff. Let's make this visceral for a second. Imagine a targeted vendor fraud attack. An attacker actually compromises one of your suppliers and sends a fake invoice that perfectly mimics their unique communication style. I'm talking right down to the exact billing terminology they always use. Proofpoint might actually miss that because it doesn't always match known bad signatures. But Sublime? It allows you to write custom logic to spot those really subtle internal anomalies and zero-day social engineering tactics. It adapts specifically to the nuanced threats facing your unique environment. All right, Section 3, Deployment and Daily Operations. This is where we really have to weigh governance against agility. Let's talk about actually getting these platforms up and running. Proofpoint's deployment is, it's heavy and strictly governed. Because it sits inline, you literally have to reroute the internet's plumbing. You're looking at MX record changes, mail routing adjustments, connector setups, and some pretty complex identity integrations. In the real world, this means dealing with scheduled downtime, extensive testing, and those strict change control board approvals. For a large enterprise, especially if you're in a regulated sector, This process can easily take several weeks or even months to fully execute. It demands highly careful, highly deliberate planning. Now, contrast all that heavy lifting with the modern API advantage you get with Sublime. You just connect your Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace tenant, grant the necessary API permissions, configure some baseline policies, and boom, you start monitoring. That's literally it. This whole process can be completed within hours or at the very most a few days. For agile organizations, the difference between months of change control versus mere hours to actual protection is just a massive competitive advantage. But what about the day-to-day grind? Here's a really crucial distinction. With Proofpoint, your operational overhead leans heavily toward IT infrastructure management. You are generally going to need dedicated administrators to tune those DLP policies, manage the quarantines, and adjust URL rules. It's a moderate to high operational overhead for sure, but enterprises accept this because of the deep governance it provides. Sublime shifts that burden completely. Your overhead isn't infrastructure anymore, it's security analytics. Because the platform absolutely thrives on custom detection engineering, it demands highly skilled SOC analysts who are actively hunting threats. The software itself is lighter, but the human capital requirement, it's highly specialized. Which brings us right to Section 4, Automation and CI/CD, highlighting what we call the DevSecOps advantage. Let's see how this builds on those core architectures we talked about. Proofpoint definitely supports automation. You've got your standard SIEM and SOAR integrations, APIs, and connectors. But you have to remember, it wasn't fundamentally born as a developer's tool, so that flexibility naturally has a bit of a ceiling. Sublime, however, behaves exactly like a modern DevSecOps platform. It natively supports Git-paced, version-controlled detection logic. What does that actually mean in practice? It means your security team can push updates, test new rules, and roll back changes with the exact same speed and agility that your software developers use to build applications. If you're a cloud-native organization, Sublime is literally speaking your engineering team's native language. All right, moving on to Section 5, Pricing and Resilience. Premium scale versus lean flexibility. Let's tackle everyone's favorite topic, the budget. Proofpoint operates on premium enterprise tier pricing. It's heavily mailbox-based, and costs can scale up pretty quickly as you start adding modules like data loss prevention, archiving, and awareness training. It is a substantial financial investment, no doubt about it, but you're paying for proven scale and incredibly deep compliance. Sublime, on the other hand, offers much more flexible pricing. Because there's no massive inline gateway infrastructure that they have to maintain, their overhead is lower, and that often reflects right in the software cost. However, here is the hidden cost warning you absolutely must take away from this. The money you save on infrastructure and licensing with Sublime, you're very likely going to need to reinvest that right back into your payroll to hire the highly specialized SOC talent required to run it effectively. And when things go wrong, well, resilience is absolutely everything. Proofpoint really shines here with a highly mature global infrastructure. They offer built-in mail continuity and extreme redundancy. If your primary mail server goes completely offline, Proofpoint steps in and keeps your enterprise communicating and functioning. Sublime's resilience, conversely, is inextricably tied to your cloud provider. If the Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace APIs experience a major outage, Sublime is impacted right along with them. So you really have to ask yourself, are you comfortable putting all your eggs in Microsoft's basket? Or do you desperately need a separate, independent safety net to keep the business running? Let's wrap this all up with Section 6, the final verdict. Which platform actually fits your 2026 strategy? Let's map this out by industry to make it really concrete. If you're in banking or government, Proofpoint is overwhelmingly the recommendation. Why? Because of regulatory trust, strong governance, and super mature compliance controls. For telecom or large manufacturing, honestly, it's a toss-up. It depends entirely on your internal SOC maturity. Now, if you are a cloud-first tech company, Sublime is absolutely the better fit. Its agility, API architecture, and DevSecOps alignment are practically unmatched right now. And finally, for small to mid-size organizations that maybe lack a dedicated threat detection team, Proofpoint's automated managed maturity delivers significantly faster value without requiring a heavy engineering lift. So, to give you a crystal clear, actionable takeaway here, choose Proofpoint if your absolute priority is mature enterprise governance, deep compliance controls, and you operate in heavily regulated sectors where you just need that proven traditional gateway scale. On the other hand, choose Sublime Security. If your organization is cloud-first, you want a SOC-driven, API-first architecture, you demand highly flexible custom detections, and this is key, you have the strong internal security engineering capability to actually utilize a CI/CD integrated approach. As we finish up, I want to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought from our sources. Quote, In the future, organizations may even use both approaches together, gateway protection plus API-based behavioral analytics, unquote. The email security market is evolving so unbelievably fast that this might not even be an either-or choice for much longer. As threats grow exponentially more sophisticated, layering in inline gateways' brute strength with the cloud-native API's surgical precision, that might just become the ultimate gold standard. So as you look at your 2026 investments, ask yourself, are you building for the architecture of today or the hybrid reality of tomorrow? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, keep analyzing, and I'll catch you next time.